Welcome, everybody, inside the coach's office. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, alongside my co host, Brian Barnes. And Brian, it's been a little bit since we got together, about a week and a half since we've were able to go live, holidays and some illnesses and different things that have popped up. But it's amazing how much can happen, in a little over 10 days. But how have you been, Brian?
I'm well. Oh, you're right. A lot has happened in the area of Detroit sports and Michigan sports in general. So fired up to talk about it and then get to the gym before the big college football semifinal playoff game tonight.
The big one that you didn't even realize was
Yeah.
on tonight until I texted you.
You texted me about chatting tonight, and I said, "Oh, I didn't realize the game was tonight." And then I went and looked. I thought they were both tomorrow. So that's where my head is at right now.
Well, as we talked about before we jumped on, just one of the many, many things that the NCAA does not do well with college football. Their marketing, not the greatest, and just the scheduling. We'll get into it in a minute, but just the scheduling of having those games where they're at, and you think they could work a little bit maybe with the NFL to work some things out, so that you could do some things to schedule these things a little bit better. But yeah, Thursday night and Friday night. I don't know. Not exactly, I would say, the best times to have your semifinals.
No, and I think I'm guessing they're gonna be on one of the 6 or 7 streaming services that we all have to have it. It's had at some point to be able to watch these games too. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, streaming, another big topic in Detroit sports that we're definitely going to get into on Sunday nights. Yep. We're going to have Tony Paul from the Detroit News on Sunday night. We're really excited to talk to him, and that's going to be a big topic. It's just the streaming issues with Detroit sports, but just in sports in general, man. This streaming stuff is it's an issue, man. It's an issue for a lot of people. But before we get all that stuff and get into the college playoffs and all that, I think one of the big topics is currently is the Detroit Lions and what they're going to do at the offensive coordinator position. They fired John Morton officially this week, and the search is on for a new offensive coordinator. And the big name that came out, we talked to Ben Bosher a couple of weeks ago about who's going to call plays for the Lions, and the name that he brought up and the name that you and I have talked about a lot is Mike McDaniel. And officially he was let go today by the Miami Dolphins, which frees him up to interview for different jobs. You would think there might be some head coaching jobs that he might interview for, but I don't know how you feel, Brian. I just feel like he's kind of destined for an offense coordinator role at this point. And man, the Lions just feel like just a perfect fit for him. It feels like a slam dunk for both sides if that can get done. And the Lions have reached out to him immediately. I mean, he can't. I mean, the ink hasn't even been dry. I don't even think he cleared out his office yet, and the Lions are already contacting him. What are your thoughts, Brian? Lions reaching out to Mike McDaniel.
You and I have talked a lot. Like, we've always been a big fan of his. I think he's a little quirky. He's a younger guy, but he comes from the Mike Shanahan coaching tree when he was in Washington with the Redskins at the time. You think about guys that were on that staff: Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and Matt LaFleur, who are all NFL head coaches. And so he has a really good pedigree. And the things that excited me about him go back to some of the things we talked about with the Lions before. Like, we kind of felt like last year, with Ben Johnson, they were a little more electric and more consistent in a lot of ways, and a lot more creative schematically. And if you watch some of the Dolphins games, like some of the things that Mike McDaniel would do with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and motion those guys and get David Achane the ball and things of that nature, like, it was a lot of fun to watch with the exit motion and sometimes jet sweep, that we talk about a lot, that we seem to really like. And excuse me. And then, like, the Lions have comparable guys. Like, they have the burner and Jamison Williams, and they have another great, receiver, obviously, in Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think it's a natural fit. And, he's a little bit different than the other guys that we might talk about, one in particular, and that, like, Jared Goff actually might be, like, he and Tua Tagovailoa are kind of similar, in terms of, like, they're not really runners, right? There's a lot of RPOs and there's a lot of screens and things like that. And, the Dolphins ran a lot of screens and things like that. So it might just be a natural fit for Jared Goff as well. So extremely excited. The Dolphins were a fun team to watch. I mean, a couple of years ago, they scored 70 points in a game. I mean, that just doesn't really happen in the NFL, right? And it doesn't matter what team it's against. It's the NFL that doesn't happen. So, I think it's a good sign that the Lions got a hold of them immediately. And that's a positive sign. So hopefully they can lock that down. That would be pretty cool. And who knows, like, he has some success here in Detroit, and he's going to get a head coaching job again somewhere, if not in the NFL, at the college level, big time somewhere. So, we're big fans. We've said that.
Yeah, you look back a couple years ago when Tua was healthy before he had all the concussion issues. He brought up the 70-point game. They had one of the most exciting and highest scoring offenses in the league. And you put him in Detroit with what the Lions have and the talent that they have on that roster. We always talk about, man, it really lacked creativity this year. You put McDaniel in control. You give him the keys to the Ferrari, so to speak. Like the things that he could do with that talent, man, it's so exciting. And you can tell just when the news first broke that McDaniel was let go by Miami, you just saw like every outlet, like every talking head in Detroit sports was like, get him, go get him, like go and try and get him. And you were just hoping that the Lions would reach out, and that for them to reach out so quickly, I think says a lot. I think it says that they're willing to maybe make a change. They're willing to get somebody that's outside the system and try to get one of these top guys. And there's several experienced NFL play callers that are available in this coaching cycle. And for the Lions to be going out and looking for an OC at this point, it's kind of perfect timing because there's so many good options. And we talked about Mike McDaniel, who became available today, but some other ones that are available. We talked about when we had that podcast with Ben Bosher, you brought up Cliff Kingsbury. Talk a little bit about him, Brian. Like he's available now, and he could be an option for the Lions to get as well. What do you like about him?
Yeah, big fan of Cliff Kingsbury. He's an old air raid guy. You think of Mike Leach, who and Hal Mummy, the college days for those guys, Washington State and Valdosta State, and what they've done with the air raid and the the mesh concept and whatnot. And Cliff Kingsbury, wherever he's been as a head coach or as an offensive coordinator, his offenses have put up points, and it's very quarterback friendly. I would say the only potential question, although I can't sit here and say his quarterbacks at Texas Tech were running threat, but in the NFL, like he's had some dual threat guys who when he was coaching them and when they were healthy, they were pretty good, and Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels, you know what I'm saying, which is not Jared Goff, right? So I mean, he did his scheme, there is a little bit of tempo, RPOs, right? Like every offense is going to have an RPO right nowadays to some degree, and but also a little bit of zone reading. If you remember the playoff game, this time a year ago, and Jaden Daniels absolutely that scheme torched the Lions, and that was, I mean, if I wasn't rooting for the Lions, I'd say, God, that was a great game to watch. Like that was a fun offense to watch. But could he adapt that to Jared Goff's skill set? Probably, but again, it's got to be a fit. And that might not be a great fit compared to Mike McDaniel.
Well, the other part with the Kingsbury issues, on his coaching staff was David Blau. And that's somebody that the Lions were rumored to be looking at and reached out to, former Lions backup quarterback. So he's played in this system, knows this system, but only 2 years as an NFL coach. Those are as a position coach, as a quarterback coach. What are your thoughts on Blau potentially maybe being looked at as Lions OC?
That's definitely an odd one. When I saw that and you sent it to me or I sent it to you, it was really kind of eye-opening. I'm not sure, unless the Lions felt like he is like that next young and up-and-comer who, when he was in Detroit as a backup quarterback, he was just the smartest guy in the room, right? And they saw something that they think that, okay, he could be a future offensive coordinator for us, which again is possible. We just don't know. But you and I kind of feel like, and I think the Lions fan base feels like, you really want this to be a sure thing. Nothing against John Morton, and which is also unfortunate because there were some local ties there, but he wasn't a sure thing, and it didn't go the way the Lions playing. You almost want a guy who definitely has had like that credibility and has had that success at a high level. Another one that I saw popped up that kind of surprised me that we didn't talk about yet was Todd Monken. So the Ravens situation with firing John Harbaugh, Todd Monken was super respected for a long time at the college level as a head coach. It wasn't he a head coach at Army and as an offensive coordinator at Georgia, and then with the Ravens. And granted, you have Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of Lamar Jackson is going to make a lot of
except for a lot of bad play calls,
except for some question. Yeah. Right. So, but Todd Monken's a guy, they've had success, but again, maybe that style of quarterback that he likes isn't in Detroit right now. And that's just the way that is.
Yeah, and then another name is Kevin Stefanski, former head coach with the Browns for 6 years, was let go this week and was OC for Minnesota Vikings for a long time. He's another just experienced play caller, brings head coaching experience along the way. Any thoughts on Stefanski?
He might, if you think about it, with the whole Dan Campbell grit sort of thing, like he might be the guy who is the best fit for what Dan Campbell wants. Like he's a big wide zone guy. He likes to use heavy personnel run groupings, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, things like that. So it might be ideal. The problem is I think Kevin Stefanski is going to be a head coach somewhere. I think he's going to get a head coaching job. So I don't think should even be on the radar, because I think he'll be a head coach, which is crazy that the guy won Coach of the Year award in Cleveland just a few years ago, and they apparently don't think highly enough of him now when he's gone, which is just the state of the NFL, and what's expected of these coaches now is crazy.
It's a results-oriented business, and they've had quite a few losing seasons in a row now. It's just kind of it's just one of those things in the NFL. It's like, we got to part ways here, just almost as a PR standpoint, which you shouldn't do. But when you have that many losing seasons in a row and it's just looked as bad as it has, not his fault. A lot of it goes back to the decision to let Baker Mayfield go and bring in Deshaun Watson. One of those what ifs that we always talk about. Like, what if the Browns had just went all in with Baker Mayfield and built a team around him? You wonder what things could have been for them. But instead they went with Deshaun Watson, even with all the. It wasn't proven yet, but there was a lot of smoke there around Deshaun Watson. And they still went ahead and gave him that huge contract. And man, just a franchise killer of a move that Cleveland made, and it just handcuffed Stefanski and to the point where he is at now, and he's
available.
So like you said, man, he's a fantastic coach, and I'm sure he's going to get a lot of head coaching interviews. Yep,
no doubt. Another one, and you haven't heard his name much with the Lions, is Brian Daboll. Like before he got hired with the Giants, like he was extremely high thought of as well, and so he's another guy though that. Like maybe he wants to be a head coach. I don't know if he wants to be at the college level as well. But again, he's a guy that was highly thought of as an offensive play caller. But it's also weird too, like in coaching circles, like guys that are head coaches that get fired, some are blackballed for like ever. You know what I mean? And they never get a head job again. And then others, like a couple that we just talked about, are like hot commodities, which is kind of interesting.
I think it's just kind of how you're looked at, especially if you're a great play caller, like Stefanski and Kingsbury are. That gives you a little bit, it gives you a little bit more leeway, because you could almost be doing two jobs at once, as a head coach and offensive coordinator. So I think that gives them a little bit more opportunities. But yeah, I mean, you do see that a lot. Like I think of like Aaron Glenn. If he has another bad season, like I feel like he's going to just be destined to be a defensive coordinator forever. It just kind of is what it is. But if things don't, especially your first head coaching opportunity doesn't go well, it's hard to get a second chance this week.
No doubt. You are correct. And Aaron Glenn was a name that we might have talked about. I've heard other people say like, hey, if he happens to be done after 1 year, which one of the craziest stats I've ever seen, Dan, is right. He's a big turnover guy. They had 0 interceptions as a team defense this year. And as a wild stat to me. That is a wild stat to me, how that is possible. 0.
That's insane.
0. That is insane. But you're right about that. Like it's, like there has to be, like if you're definitely like a first year head coach, especially, like there has to be some growth, or you're going to be under some criticism. So
yeah, or your ownership, your GM has to have a ton of faith in you. As the Lions did with Dan Campbell. You remember halfway through the 22 season, they had the horrible year the first year, and then they start off 1-6, and Sheila Ford came out and had that press conference and basically just gave them a vote of confidence and said, we still stand behind these guys. We see the potential. We see the growth. We haven't seen it in the wins and losses, but we see it. Like we see it, and it's coming. It's coming. And then all of a sudden they go on this amazing run after that.
Yeah, and some organizations would have gotten rid of him by then. Do you know what I mean? But it was again, for as much as occasionally I'll get on Dan Campbell for in-game situations and stuff like that. That is a culture thing right there. That you're 1-6 after a whatever 3 and whatever season the year before. Like guys were still buying in, and then you steadily saw improvement. So for sure.
Yeah. If you had to make a prediction, or let's put it this way, who would you think is the best fit for the Lions? I know you mentioned Stefanski, but he's probably not.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get a head coaching spot. Do you think it's McDaniel?
I do. If he, the problem is it depends on, maybe it's what he wants to, you know what I'm saying? Like who knows, what situation he wants to go into. He might look at the Lions offensive players and say, heck yeah, I want to be a part of that. That's going to help me out a lot. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think schematically, and I think personnel wise, he's the best fit. He's the guy I want. He's the guy, like we've talked about that before. I would not be shocked though if the Lions do something like David Blau, right? Like I wouldn't, and that might turn out to be the greatest hire ever. It just doesn't seem right in this current situation.
There feels like they're in such a critical spot in this franchise's history, not just Dan Campbell's there, but the franchise's history. Because you have a roster on paper that is Super Bowl caliber. Yep. You missed the playoffs. You go 9-8. You missed the playoffs. You're last in the division. Incredibly difficult division to play in, and it's going to continue to be incredibly difficult. And you have to nail this hire. Like you have to nail it. Like they obviously failed spectacularly with the John Morton hire, that he got removed from his offense coordinator duties, play calling duties so early into his reign, that obviously it was a horrible move. And if they could go back and redo it, obviously they would. So they have to nail this. And I just feel like going with somebody that's that inexperienced, he may be great.
Yeah,
but it just feels like such a risk that they are not in a position to make a risk like that. They have to go out and get somebody that has a ton of experience. And as we just went through a ton of names. All these guys have not only a ton of experience as play callers, they have a ton of experience as head coaches.
Correct. Yeah, I think very similar to what we talked about with the Michigan situation. Like we kind of feel like it's got to be one of these guys we're talking about. It just has to be. So, yeah, I think maybe I want it to be Mike McDaniel, and I think it will be Mike McDaniel.
If it's not, and it is David Blau, and because we talked about like how much excitement there is just at the fact that they're talking to McDaniel, everybody wants it to happen. I've never seen really anything like this where just for an offensive coordinator position where there's so much buzz and excitement that they could possibly they're talking to the guy. Yeah. If they end up not getting McDaniel and go with David Blau, the fan base is not going to be happy.
At the NFL level, no offense to the fans, but who cares? There's going to be excitement anyway because it's the Lions. They don't need any more. Hey, heck yeah, go! They'll be pissed, but if it goes well, they're not going to care, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not like a college coordinator or a college head coach situation with that. So that being said though, do you think there's a chance with the culture stuff, the David Blau situation that he's even considered? What about I've seen Scotty Montgomery, Lions, wide receivers coach, assistant head coach. He's been an OC at the college level a couple different times. And then Hank Fraley, we've been big on Hank Fraley and the Lions offensive line for a while.
And I wanted to bring him up. I'm glad you brought that name up because I was thinking about this. Okay. So he's one guy that hasn't gotten really any criticism, right? It was all John Morton and Dan Campbell, but Hank Fraley was promoted to the run game coordinator, and he's been talked about being a future offensive coordinator. And and Dan Campbell didn't hand off play calling to him. No. When everything fell apart with Morton, he didn't hand it off to Hank Fraley. There was no talk of it. Campbell just I'm taking it over. It's all me. And there was very little talk of Fraley, at all. And I wonder if he's viewed that way within the team and within the organization and from Dan Campbell, that he is a guy that could handle that. And maybe he's just destined to be an offensive line coach and be an awesome, fantastic offensive line coach for his career.
Which is fine. At the NFL level, guys don't typically, coach a position and call the side of the ball. Right. So, I'm with you. That is very much the case. I'm guessing like he interviewed for the Seahawks offensive coordinator job last year, so I'm guessing he's probably said to Dan Campbell, "Hey, I'd like to be in consideration here. You know, you went outside and it didn't work out. Like I'm here, you know, and I've been here, so let's do that." But yeah, I don't know. I still, like you said though, going back to it, I still think you need the sure thing or the feeling of a guy that's like done it and put up points and has led a successful offense. And you know, the guys we mentioned have done that.
Yeah. I mean, I just love Mike McDaniel from that standpoint. Like you said, he's kind of an odd dude. Like I love that aspect. I love personalities and characters, and like I would love it. Just from that standpoint, you know, from what we do, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I want to see the training camp of Dan Campbell doing his down ups or standing there and stuff, and Mike McDaniel walking by with his Lululemons on and like. Right. Like that would be.
There's so much good content that's going to come from.
That would be pretty cool.
That.
Yeah.
I want it. I just want for so many ways. I just want it. I want it to happen. Like I cannot wait for that announcement to come that the Lions have fired Mike McDaniel. I'm just so fired up. And gosh, if they do the what do they call it on HBO? It's slipping my mind.
The Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks, yeah. They did. They probably wouldn't come back to Detroit. I don't even know if Detroit would want to do it, but man, that would be. That would be fantastic. That would be have Campbell and McDaniel interaction.
Yes, that would be a fun one. That would be fun. So, by the way, do we have any comments?
Yes, we do. So, our friend Steven Ramirez, who was on the coaching staff at Kettering.
Let's go, Coach.
He thinks basically just saying hi, what's up, and then he kind of mentioned about how how he talked about fans being upset with David Blau. He's just mentioned how those are the same fans that blame Dan Campbell for going on fourth down, but celebrating it when they they get the fourth down correct. Which I get to that to some respect. Even your casual fans are going to be upset just because it's not a name. When there's names out there.
Correct.
From my aspect, I would be upset at it just because I think they need somebody experienced, and it feels like if they just go again with somebody that he knows the system.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like they're not willing to make that big move because they don't want to rock the boat. Like they don't want to have Jared Goff and the rest of the offense have to learn new calls, new plays. Like they want to keep that consistency, which I get to some degree, especially when you consider the communication was an issue across the offensive line at times this year. Like you would like to have consistency across the offense with your play calling, but man, and I feel like this is the point. Like maybe you need a new voice in there. Maybe you need a little bit, change things up, get guys on their toes a little bit, a big change might be needed.
But this is my thing. Like what system are we alluding to? Because when Ben Johnson was here, like the offense was vastly different than what we saw a year ago.
Do you know it feels like I think it's the same system in terms. We're talking about just how the plays are called, just the terminology and things like that. In terminology across the offensive line and then that type of stuff. I feel like it was vastly different just because I don't know. Like I don't know if all those things were in the playbook and they just weren't being used. Like I don't know. It was vastly different in just terms of creativity.
That's what I'm saying. So like, was it Ben Johnson's scheme and then it became John Morton and Dan Campbell's scheme and. I don't know, right? Like keep in mind this, like to your point, I agree with you that fans would be bothered, by Blau because they don't know, but like, Sean McVay, like I don't know if people in Los Angeles realized he was the next up and comer at that age as well, because it was pretty close in age. Like, Blau was 30, and I think Sean McVay when he was hired was 31. So I mean, that. Like inside the coaching circles and the organizations, they might feel like David Blau is the next up and comer, right? We don't know that. So, but to your point, I mean, just because like critical part of the Lions franchise history right now, like you want to talk about the window and all that other stuff, other than the Barry Sanders, 91 to 95 teams, like this feels like it, man. Like, do you feel like, I kind of feel like, we're coming up on year 5 of the Dan Campbell era, right? Like if it doesn't happen, then no, the window's not closed, but like reboot. Like it might. I feel very much going into this next season as I did as a Michigan fan going into 2021. You remember when Jim Harbaugh made that statement, we're going to win or die trying? Yeah. That's what it feels like where the Lions are at right now. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And I think you got to make the big moves. Go out and get, if it's Mike McDaniel or another one of these experienced play callers. And I also would say, man, go out and I'm just going to say it, and go out and at least try for Max Crosby. And I know like you got to look at salaries and you might have to make some tough cuts and some tough decisions and somebody we're going to talk about in a minute, but you might have to make some difficult decisions and let some guys go to free up some salary. But you go out and you get a Max Crosby, like they're the top odds better to win the Super Bowl next year.
You're not wrong. And think about this too. Like who would have thought Micah Parsons would have been a Packer this time a year ago? I mean, I know he got hurt, right? But
if he doesn't get hurt, if he doesn't get hurt, they win the division,
no doubt.
And they're the 2 seed, and a lot of people are talking about them possibly winning the Super Bowl.
No doubt.
That's how impactful that injury was, and that's how impactful he was throughout the season. I mean, he's a large reason why the Lions lost to him twice and are sitting at home right now.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I agree. No, I totally.
And sometimes when other teams make moves like that within your division, whether it's immediate or long term as in terms of the Parsons decision, you got to match it. You're competing with these teams head to head. You lost to them twice. You got to go out and match that move.
Yeah,
the Raiders are seriously putting him on are going to listen to offers, because originally they said no, absolutely not. We're not listening. We signed him long term. He's a Raider for life. This, that, and the other. And all of a sudden now, they fired their coach and things are kind of a little bit in turmoil. And then they had the old issues where they had him sit and he didn't want to sit, and he's doing the videos where he's playing basketball and all that. He's clearly not thrilled.
Right now.
And he's just one name. Like there's other, he's just one guy because he seems like that would be the best fit and he wants to be here. He's a local guy, all that stuff.
Sure.
But there's multiple other moves that they could make just to help get them over the hump.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. And it's not like the Raiders are a quarterback or a head coach away from, winning. Like they've got a long way to go. They're a full rebuild, number one pick. They got a long way to go, right? I mean, they do have a great running back, but they have a long way to go. So I'm with you. I agree.
And before we talk about the Brad Holmes press conference, there's a couple things from there I want to talk about. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Lions' final game against the Bears, and we kind of went back and forth. We were texting a little bit. Like, I just want to get your thoughts on that. We don't have to go in depth in the game, but just more like the game itself, watching it as a fan and as an analyst, like. What did you want them to win? Did you not want them to win? Did you not care? Did you even watch? Like for me, like I wanted them to win. Like once the Minnesota won their game and it was determined that the Lions are going to be last place, they're going to get the last place schedule. Like a couple spots in the draft, like didn't matter to me as much as like, hey, let's just I want to see them finish the season, like play well, look good, like show me what they can be when they're playing at their best. And I wanted them go into Chicago and stick it to Ben Johnson and the Bears and sweep them and finish with a winning season for the 4th straight year. I know like a lot of that stuff is maybe doesn't matter in the long, term things like that doesn't really, a lot of people say that stuff doesn't carry over to the next season, and it probably doesn't. But just as a fan, like I just wanted to finish on a good note. Like I wanted them to win. And then I went over to my sister's house and we watched it together, and we knew it was last Lions game of the year, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching them win and beat the Bears. And Brian, I know your opinion was a little different than mine, but what were your thoughts?
A lot different. Yeah. Remove the fan part of it because I wasn't really watching with interest. Everything you just said is correct. Like, hey, it's great they beat the Bears and swept them. Hey, it's great they finished with a winning record. The draft pick, those extra 3 spots, maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Hey, you want to go out on a winning note. Like, this is like a business, the National Football League. There are guys that were playing in that game who will not be on the Lions roster, like in a month or 2, right? They're not even going to be there. Like, I couldn't care less. Hey, Alex Anzalone played a great, who cares? He's gone, he's done, he's not going to be a Lion. Like, none of that, remove any of that cool fandom part. Like, none of that mattered to me. It didn't matter that, they looked excited to play. We talked about that. They were inspired, and the Bears probably weren't inspired, although we both agree we kind of think the Bears are frauds to a degree. Anyway, we do. But who cares? The Lions aren't in the dance. You had you were the number 1 seed, and you had the best record in football this time a year ago. And, hey, we played a great final game. Woo. Right? Which is basically like a week 18 preseason game is how I felt watching it. and that sucked. It was very
For a bowl. It was like a bowl game. It was like the NFL version of a bowl game.
It was, yeah, and it was kind of bittersweet. Like it sucked because there were times where I'm watching and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it felt like the last couple of years. I remember this was cool. I love this part of the Lions the last couple of years, right? And then in the back of my mind, though, it's like, yeah, but it's not going to matter at 7:30, 8 o'clock because it's done, and that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah. There was a part of me though at the end, but they blew the 16-0 lead, and I'm like, you know what? If the Bears end up winning this game, it kind of just like the entire Lions season wrapped up in one game.
No doubt. No doubt.
They started off hot, had a good start. You think, man, this is the Lions team. They're a Super Bowl contender, all this when they have the full roster and all that. And they're playing at their best. And then, bam,
no doubt.
They completely blow it at 16-16. And then that second to last drive, not the very last drive, but the second to last drive, they get down to the Bears 25 with 2.5 minutes left. And the 3 plays that they had following that, it was some of the worst football. Yeah. Considering the situation that I've ever seen, man. Yeah. And it ended with a 3rd and 20 interception by Goff that just was like totally inexcusable. St. Brown, there was 3 guys around him. Meanwhile, you got Tesla underneath who's wide open. Like you're not going to get the first down, but you're going to get in great field goal positions. Like, what are you doing, man? Right. And they wasted no time off the clock. And I'm thinking at that point, yeah, okay, fine. that thought of like, I hope the Lions win. All that. I was so mad by the play calling and the decision making. Like, it's fine. Just lose at this point.
Do you know what my thinking was? Is like there are times I enjoy going down to Comerica Park when there are no expectations for the Tigers. And you can just go watch the games and like, oh, look at these young players develop. Like a couple years ago, oh, who's this Torkelson guy? Oh, Scooble, right? That's right. Like Torkelson was the #1 pick. Let's see him. And there was no pressure. You were just watching guys develop. And sometimes that's great as a fan. That was cool when the Lions, the Dan Campbell second year that we talked about where they started 1-6.
2022, yeah. When they went into Green Bay and knocked them out.
Went into Green Bay. That was pretty cool. It's different now, though. It has to be different. Like, I think a fan's mindset, and I think their mindset is different. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's great, but it's not, we're not that up and comer anymore, man. This was, we're guys are, going to be, their careers, they're getting older. I mean, it is what it is, right? I'm not going to say the window, whatever, but like, it's just, nope, things are different now, and they have to be different.
No, and I get that. I just, I had already gotten out all of my anger and frustrations as a fan after the Pittsburgh, and then really after the Minnesota game and the podcast that we did. And, I was really upset with how they played on Christmas Day, and pretty much eliminated, that day. So it was just like, okay, this is one final game. Like they're going to finish in last place. I'm just going to try to enjoy this.
I think,
it just was like, it was odd to me just how mad that some fans were. Like you had more like, whatever, who cares one way or the other. I wanted to watch them win just because it was like the last game of the season. I just wanted to enjoy watching them win and beat the Bears. But there were some fans that were like truly like mad, like really angry, like radio hosts and fans that called in and, people posting comments and that like were really mad that they played the way they did and won that game because they wanted the draft position. I think a lot of it too was just like, you guys are going to do this now? Where was this on Christmas Day?
The 3 games that we had talked about, like the clunkers, I like to say, right? How come you weren't playing like this during those clunkers? Why did you, wet yourself, so to speak? And that's how it felt. And keep this in mind too, Dan. I'm a little older than you, but like Lions fans that are even older than me, like think about like in their 60s and 70s, like we've been all conditioned toward the end of the season to like get the best draft pick we can, because forever that the NFL drafted is the Lions Super Bowl. So I think it's like one of those innate feelings as a Lions fan to just, okay, we're going to lose, get a higher draft pick. Or, hey, we're watching these games. This team has to win or this team has to lose because it's going to help the Lions draft position. That was like my childhood up until 1991, So whatever. That being said, here we are. Unfortunately, the offseason, for the Lions anyway, and the NFL playoffs are still going on, and they're watching. And like we said, we talked about it with the Tigers, and it's still been, we feel kind of slow, and they're running out of time. Spring training's coming up in about 30 days. Like, it's going to be a fascinating offseason for the Lions. It's critical. All right, let me ask you this. Who's better now that just popped in my head, who do you think is set up for a longer term success right now? The Tigers or the Lions? Because we talked about they both have interesting offseasons.
I think a lot of that is going to be determined by the Scooble situation. It's tough to say. Like, if Scooble ends up leaving, which we assume that he will, whether it's this offseason, and I think it's starting to feel like it's going to be after 26, the 26th season, that he'll be gone. Who's going to replace him? And then you got to look at Casey Mize as a free agent, Flaherty's a free agent. It's going to determine what are they going to do with that pitching staff, because they don't have a lot of stud pitchers coming up. It's all hitters.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really determined, because I always say, like, regardless of everything else in your baseball team, like, if you have two studs at the top of your rotation, like, you're going to contend. And especially in that division that the Tigers are in, like, if you got two studs at the top of your rotation, you're going to contend. But if all those guys are gone, it's a lot of question marks long term after this year.
Yeah, I agree.
If you were to say pro sports, like all Detroit pro sports, it's the Pistons, hands down. It's the Pistons who are in the best shape.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because the Pistons are at where the Lions were at in 23.
Correct.
Where all these guys, none of them are all pretty much. I think Cade's pretty much the only one. Like, everybody's on rookie contracts. Like, they're not getting paid very much. Like, and they're all hitting their primes, man. Like, they look absolutely incredible, and they look set up to have, like we talk about, a window. Like, they have a solid window of like the next 3 years, where these guys aren't going to have to be paid, long term.
Right. No,
they're in the best shape, I think.
I agree, and the thing with them is it'll be a situation where, like, those guys are just going to have to perform in the playoffs, right? That's what you don't, and that's what you don't know in the NBA, right? Like, or in any sport really, but how those guys are going to play in the playoffs. But yeah, I agree, man.
And that's something, and we're excited to have Sean Murphy on, who covers the Pistons. Beat writer for the Pistons. He'll be on this Sunday as well. We'll be interviewing Tony Paul first, and then Sean Murphy will be coming on immediately after that. So we haven't talked much Pistons on this show. Like we said, it's not exactly in our wheelhouse, but man, we're really excited to have him on, because man, the Pistons have been incredible right now.
Yep, no doubt, man. I agree. Good talk. Who are you picking tonight, Dan? In the Fiesta Bowl, I got to ask, who's your Fiesta Bowl pick?
Miami and Ole Miss.
Oh, look at
man!
that.
I like the story of Ole Miss, man. Like, I just I want my heart is with Ole Miss just for the story of it, and Chambliss and everything. But that Miami defense is something else, man. Like, I think my mind is saying Miami, my heart is saying Ole Miss. But if I had to make a pick, I would say Miami in a close one.
Yeah, like I thought you were going to say the soap opera with all of the LSU coaches that are coaching in this game for Ole Miss still, and all that, possible tampering and all that other nonsense. But anyway, I think the cool story, if Miami wins tonight, is like, the national championship game is in Miami. Like, how crazy is that going to be? And and if you're and the other side, like, either way, Indiana or Oregon, like, there'll be a significant Miami contingent at that game. And so I do think, it's a wild story. I think Miami, like, because I was a big Ohio State guy with all their NFL talent and what Miami did to them, that was pretty impressive. I mean, not that Ole Miss beating Georgia wasn't impressive. So, I'm with you. I'm going to go with Miami as well.
And then how about tomorrow night, Oregon, Indiana, rematch from a game early in the season when Indiana went up to Oregon and beat them by 10. Like I've said before, I think it was the most impressive win, regular season win of any team in the country, was Indiana's road win against Oregon. I think really showed at the country that day that they're serious. They were a serious national championship contender, and that has continued. But Oregon's been on a roll since then, and have looked fantastic. Who do you got in this one, Brian?
Yeah, Oregon hasn't lost since then, like you said, on the roll. And they might have the best player on the field in Dante Moore, local Detroit Martin Luther King quarterback.
Probably the top two quarterbacks that are going to get drafted.
Yeah, you're right. And it is so hard to beat a team twice, as like we've seen it in all levels of football. God, that being said, though, like after what Indiana did to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, I'm like, no, I think Indiana is the best team in the country. So I'm going with
I thought you were going to say after what they did to Alabama. My
geez,
God,
goodness,
what a
right?
beatdown that
No, I
was.
did. I tweeted that out, or I put it on our site. If you would have said 5 years ago that score of the game was Indiana, whatever it was, 38-3 or whatever it was over Alabama, like 28-3, whatever it was, like you'd think we're lying. Like there's just no way. And that's it. Like it felt like it was close for a while, but like Indiana had better players than Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
better coaching.
better coaching.
Like, and it was interesting that they played Alabama because I heard it brought up like Cignetti has brought that like Saban way to Indiana. Like it feels like Alabama. Like and just in terms of the fundamentals and just how well they play in terms of the discipline and just the way how stoic he is on the sidelines. Even to the color scheme, like it feels like I'm watching Alabama when I watch Indiana football. It's wild. Yeah, and Cignetti is a part of that Saban tree.
He is, and it helps that his team is all a bunch of 23-year-olds, just like Michigan's national game a couple years ago, right? But like he's playing by the rules, whatever. I mean, you can't criticize it. No, they're everything you said is true. It's hard not to be a Curt Cignetti fan, and he's at one point thought to be going to Michigan State, and that didn't happen, and but everything seems to work out. So.
And speaking of, Michigan State, in the transfer portal, probably Michigan State's best player, Marsh, is going to go to Indiana. Cignetti was able to get him in the transfer portal, and man, you had to be disappointed if you're a Michigan State fan, and is he gonna put up some numbers in Indiana offense?
So with the weird thing again about the calendar, that's all you hear about, right? I heard Rick Neuheisel today on Sirius Satellite Radio talk about the calendar and what these guys are doing and what they can't do. So Indiana, they have to have a group of coaches or staff members that are, like monitoring the transfer portal, right? Having conversations with potential kids and maybe even agents now, right? While preparing for a national semifinal playoff game. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the equivalent to the AFC and NFC championship game. And guys are like, oh yeah, like
free agency going on as the playoff.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just incredible to me. But Indiana is they're going to be good again next year, and we'll see. But
it feels like they're going to be good as long as Cignetti is there.
It feels like a weird dynamic shift in college football, right? With everything, and the playing field is extremely even now all across the country for the most part. And Indiana's going to be here a while.
I have, just speaking of Cignetti, I've heard some people talk. I was listening to Rich Eisen, and he said that would be the first guy the Vegas Raiders should go after, or at least talk to, is Cignetti. Like, if you were in Cignetti's position, you've kind of been on the lower ranks. You were James Madison for a long time. He's in his early 60s, so he's not a young guy. Yeah. Like, it feels like he's landed in a spot where he can be an absolute legend there, and have potentially build up a dynasty there at Indiana and just be, the legacy and what he could be there forever. Would you give that up to potentially go to the NFL at this point?
I think it depends. If his dream has been to coach in the NFL and be an NFL head coach, then I think he would consider any job opening. That being said, though, like the dynamic of college football has changed. So what I mean by that is like, okay, the fact that Indiana is this relevant, like it's not just like this might be one of the best stories in college football history. Like not just relevant, but like nationally elite. Right. Yeah. It's not set up like it used to be when Northwestern went to the Rose Bowl in '95. That was like the shock of all shocks. And then they haven't been back to the Rose Bowl since. Right. And just the way college football is structured, it's too hard for them. It was too hard for them in the academic, situation to be nationally elite. Who's to say Indiana isn't a better job than Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, whatever, South Carolina, whatever. Like, Indiana could be that now just because of the landscape of college football has changed. And so you're right. He might have a dynasty there, and it might be as good of a dynasty as anybody in the history of college football.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting to watch. And who do you ultimately see winning it all? Do you think it's going to be Indiana?
100%. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not a betting
kind of in
guy. I
that
don't,
same boat.
even though we see all the FanDuel ads and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I, if I had to bet, it'd be Indiana. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I think it would be fascinating if Ole Miss were able to pull this
That would be
off.
cool.
You want to talk about stories, man. If Ole
Yeah.
Miss was somehow able to do it, the first person I would want to hear interviewed is Lane Kiffin, and what he would have to say after that, because man, it'd be absolutely fascinating. But I just, man, way Indiana looked against Alabama, and that was one of the most dominating performances in a game of of that magnitude that I've seen, and to do it against Alabama was
Right.
yeah, it was something to see. But let's shift gears, Brian. We'll finish up here. Let's take a look at the NFL playoffs here. We're not going to go too in depth with this, but just kind of want to get just kind of your general thoughts. As we look. We'll start with the AFC, and we'll just kind of go down each game and just give a quick thought on each game here. So we got Denver. Got the 1 seed. They have the bye, which, I mean, you look at the two teams that got the byes, Denver and Seattle. Man, whatever. Who before the season would have predicted that? And just a crazy year in the NFL. But let's start with the first game here that we got listed here. It's a 5-4 matchup. Houston going into Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh coming off that really incredible game. One of the best games that really I've ever watched, man. Because I happened to turn it on. I was doing some things, and I happened to turn it on right at the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was 13-10 at the time. And then that fourth quarter was one of the best fourth quarters I have ever watched, considering the magnitude of the game. Win or go home, and you got Aaron Rodgers, you got ultimately it ended up being John Harbaugh's last game with Baltimore. What a game that was, and that propels Pittsburgh to be the division winner, and they get to host this game against Houston. So, what were your thoughts on this one, Brad?
Yeah, like looking at this bracket, like there's a lot of unknowns, man, in the NFL playoffs right now. Like, so I mentioned with the Pistons, there's got to be guys that, it all depends on how they perform in the playoffs. Same thing here. We got a lot of uncertain quarterbacks that have not even had the playoff opportunity, right? I think like Houston is playing at such a level. What have they won? I think 9 games in a row, and I think their defense is number 1 overall, or in the top 2 or 3 in the NFL. Even though it's a home game for the Steelers, I'm going to take the Texans.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I think that defense is just too dominant. I think it is interesting for Pittsburgh, though. They'll get Metcalf back after that 2-game suspension. Yeah. So obviously he'll add a lot to that offense, but I just think that defense is going to be too much with Houston. I think Houston's going to win that game as well. Next one we got up is Buffalo, Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, man, might be been incredibly dominant, played incredibly good football all year to get to the 3 seed, but very quietly. Like there's, no one has really talked about Jacksonville, but they have been an absolute force, especially lately. But they get Buffalo. Buffalo goes into Jacksonville, and for Buffalo, it feels like if you just look at how the teams that are in this bracket, and you didn't watch it all year. Like, let's say you get at the beginning of the season, like this is how the bracket's going to look. You would say like, okay, Buffalo must have had a couple injuries to be the 6th seed, but holy cow, like what a way to break for it. They don't got the Chiefs, they don't got the Ravens, they don't got Burrow and the Bengals. Like, man, it sets up for Josh Allen, but to make that run, they're gonna have to win 3 straight road games to get to the Super Bowl, and it starts in Jacksonville. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, and it's happened before. And Jacksonville, they went into Denver and won, and gave Denver their only home loss. So Jacksonville's a real deal. They're also on a extremely long winning streak as well. This might be the Bills' year, in my opinion, even though, like you said, they have to go on the road 3 times. I don't think in Jacksonville is an extremely scary place to play. So if I'm going to pick the Bills.
This is a game I am really looking forward to. I feel like this could be, kind of Trevor Lawrence's breaking out, part of this playoff. He could have one of those playoff runs where he finally kind of lives up to that number 1 pick, all the potential that he has had. It feels like things are, coming together for him. in terms of the coaching situation and the team kind of getting built around him. Maybe this is the year that he breaks through, and a win over Josh Allen in the first round would definitely kind of put a stamp on that. Be like, yeah, this is his time now. But man, it's hard to pick against Josh Allen, man. He's the best. I think he's the best player in the NFL right now. And I think he's going to put the team on his back, at least for this first round game. I think he's going to put the team on his back and carry him to the next round. I'm going to take the Bills as well.
By the way, we talked about the Lions a lot, obviously. The Bills are kind of on a similar parallel. Like, they haven't broken through. You know what I'm saying? So if they lose this game, Sean McDermott, is he on the hot seat? Like, I feel like their window has been a little bit longer. This Josh Allen era has been a little bit longer than the Dan Campbell era. I'm curious what happens in Buffalo if they do not.
They lose this. If they lose this game, first round exit. Very much like the Lions, it's a look in the mirror type situation. And you're thinking, okay, we're going to have to make some changes. What are those changes going to be? So fascinating game. I think one of the most, if not the most fascinating games of the first round. But we both got the Bills in that one, but I think that's going to be a fantastic game. Next one we got is Chargers Patriots. Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers going into New England. New England has the home game here. The Chargers kind of have limped their way through this season. So many injuries across their offensive line. Herbert's just been running for his life more often than not, but somehow they're able to really run the ball, which obviously has always been a Jim Harbaugh staple. But with so many injuries to the offensive line, it's a little surprising that they're able to run the ball as well as they have. But that's helped carry them and get them into the playoffs. But do you think they can get it done and get the big upset here over New England?
I mean, Drake May is playing at an MVP-like level. Again, it's two young quarterbacks who haven't performed in the playoffs just yet. I think it's extremely hard, even though, yes, it's been done before. You're a West Coast team traveling to New England. I think that is a tough job for the Chargers, so I'm going to take the Patriots.
Yeah, I think the Patriots got this one too. I think the Chargers have done as best they can do, considering how many injuries they had across that offensive line. But I think this is where the road ends for them. Shift gears over to the NFC. As we mentioned, Seattle is the number 1 seed with their win over San Francisco last week. So we'll start off here with the 5-4 matchup. LA goes into Carolina. LA is huge favorites in this game, despite Carolina being the home team and Carolina beating LA just a few weeks ago. But Carolina's been one of those teams that's just up and down, up and down, up and down. You don't know what you're going to get from them one week to the next, which, kind of goes back to they're a pretty young team. Bryce Young's still a pretty young quarterback. But when they play at their best, and they show they can play with anybody with how they played against LA a few weeks ago. But what do you think about this one, Brian?
Yep, I agree. I think the reason the Rams are the favorite is simple, and it's Matt Stafford. They have a quarterback advantage, right, just based on experience and what Matt Stafford has done. So I would pick the Rams.
Yeah, I think
I believe didn't the Panthers beat the Rams potentially, or who am I thinking? The Panthers had a big win.
Yeah, that's why I said. Yeah, I just mentioned that. The Panthers went into they beat LA just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's why it's a little bit surprising that LA is such a huge favorite. I want to say it's like 10 points or something like that. It was a huge spread. But yeah, I mean, Carolina did beat them, but that was a big upset a few weeks back. But yeah, I mean, and Carolina is at home. We'll see what happens. But I definitely think LA is going to get this win. I think the Stafford, the experience advantage obviously goes to LA across the board, but especially at the quarterback's position with Stafford. I do not see Stafford and the Rams losing this one. So we both got the Rams, and we're pretty much I think we're 4 for 4 on this one.
I know we are
in agreement.
Not good for talk shows, but yeah.
No, but not a lot of argument across the board here, but it's still a lot of fascinating matchups. Another fascinating matchup is this next one is San Francisco going into Philly. Philly's the team has kind of been up and down a little bit throughout the year. Their offense has really struggled, but that defense is always great. And San Francisco has battled injuries. We talked about San Francisco. Like, man, it seems like they're just like the Lions. They always seem to be battling injuries. Injuries derailed their season last year. They were able to get through it this year. And potentially could have been in 1 seed or at least a division winner if they could have got past Seattle last week, but weren't able to get it done. So they fall to the 6th seed, and they're going to go to Philly. What do you think about this one?
I'm actually going to take the 49ers.
Really?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no real deep insight, but like you said, both teams have been banged up and not healthy. Christian McCaffrey has been healthy all year for the first time in a while.
Yes.
That's obviously helped the Niners a little bit. So I'm going to take the Niners.
Yeah, so with some things I heard about this game, the 49ers are going to have some backups at linebacker, and it sounds like Lane Johnson's going to be back for the Phillies and the offensive line, which could be a huge factor for them. I have this feeling that Philly's going to get back to who they are and who we saw last year, and Saquon Barkley's going to take over. They're going to get that running game going. They're going to be that opens up everything for Jalen Hurts, who's I think very dependent on having a strong run game. And if they're able to run the ball with Barkley, what they have in the past, and when they did to carry them to a Super Bowl last year, I think Philly's going to win this one. I don't know, man. I think San Francisco, much like the Chargers, I think have gotten as much as they can out of this season. But I think, much like I said about the Chargers, I think the road ends here going into Philly, and I think Philly kind of gets back to who they are and wins this game. And then the final game we got might be the most intriguing of them all, and that is the 7-2 matchup. It's Green Bay going into Chicago. That incredible game they had a few weeks ago. Chicago coming back from that 10-point deficit late, getting the onside kick, and then that incredible throw by Caleb Williams to win the game, walk-off touchdown to beat the Packers and essentially basically win the division, which puts this game in Chicago. Interesting note about this one, week 18, Green Bay basically treated it like a bye week, man. They rested all their guys. I mean, it wasn't just Love and a few other top guys. I mean, it was like all their starters pretty much sat, like as much as you can with the roster limits. And Chicago played to try to win against the Lions. They played their starters throughout, and they tried to win that game. So maybe Green Bay comes in. It's kind of always that talk, rust versus rest. Jordan Love's been out for a while. He's been out since that Bears game when he got knocked out in the second quarter. So you wonder how he's going to be. Is he going to be able to shake off the rust and whatnot? But really intriguing matchup, Brian. Really excited for this one. Green Bay at Chicago. What do you got?
Yeah, another one of those who's healthier, young quarterbacks who's going to play well. I think it's near impossible to beat a team 3 times in the NFL. So I'm going to take they split, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they split. Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
Well, the interesting stat, because it feels like Green Bay won both because Green Bay never trailed.
Yeah.
In either game.
No, you're right.
Until the final score. They led the Bills never led during the game. They had the one lead at the very end on that walk-off touchdown.
In my mind, I'm thinking that, and that's my bad. But so I'm going to take the Packers. I
am too. This was the big one I was looking at. Because you were looking at the Bears win, if the Bears lose and the Eagles win, like the Eagles are going to jump into the 3 seed, and then the Bears would have been playing the 49ers. Like, kind of looking at the different matches, I'm like, man, if it ends up being Chicago, Green Bay, I'm taking Green Bay. And sure enough, that is the matchup. I just felt like with Green Bay treating it like a bye week last week, I think that's going to help them because they were battling some injuries. And if Love, it's going to come down to how Love performs. Yeah. I mean, if he's relatively healthy and looks like the Jordan Love that we've seen and can play to that capability, I think Green Bay's just a better team, man. Even without Micah Parsons, I just think Green Bay's better, and I think Green Bay's going to get the win.
How much do you think coaching goes into this? Because I know, LaFleur has been criticized a little bit before. Like, I'm not going to say he's on the hot seat, but if the Packers lose, does it turn up a little? Does the heat turn up on him a little bit? Right? He's been there a while. I wonder.
Well, they're maybe not quite as in the same boat as the Lions, but maybe so. I mean, especially when you go out and make a big move like Micah Parsons, you're expecting him to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, he might not have the offseason that he would want, but he should be ready by the time the season's ready to go. And you make a move like that, that's a win now move. That's an absolutely win now move. And obviously he got hurt, but I would think going into next season, regardless how this game plays out, even if they were to get blown out, I don't think he's going to lose his job, but I definitely would think he might be on the hot seat going into next year because it's a win now. It's Super Bowl or bust now. When you make a move like Micah Parsons, it's a win now. Yeah. Super Bowl bust type situation.
And I go back to the one that got me thinking was they lose in the COVID year when they kicked the field goal. They had the lead again over the Buccaneers late, and they were down, but they kicked the field goal and then they never got the ball back. And right. And the criticism was, dude, you have Aaron Rodgers. Like, why aren't you going to the end zone? Like, trying to
weren't they? Yeah, they were like down 4.
And it was weird. And then they kicked the ball to Tom Brady and never got it back. Yeah, right. And
that was really.
So I wonder if he no, I don't think hot seat, but I think there's not uncertainty. And again, Tubbs, Coach Ramirez, 49ers, baby. I'm with you. Go Niners. Go Niners.
Maybe we got to do a little friendly bet amongst the three of us.
I think we might have to.
I'm definitely all Philly on that one. But definitely some intriguing matchups, Brian. And as we mentioned, it feels very wide open. Like you look at the AFC, and like you mentioned, like before the year, like who you would think be in the AFC playoffs, and then you look at this bracket, and the 1, 2, and 3 seeds are Denver, New England, Jacksonville. It's like in no world before the season would anybody have thought that would be the 1, 2, 3 seeds in the AFC.
It's nuts. It's extremely wide open. Like no Patrick Mahomes. Like remember we talked about him in the regular season, and we're still like, yeah, no, the Chiefs. I still, I would still favor them, and I would still bet on them. But there is no Patrick Mahomes. Like to me, if you're thinking only quarterbacks, what team do you trust the most? What team's quarterback do you trust the most? And I think it's Matt Stafford. I think it's the Rams. They're the team with the quarterback I trust the most. Even though Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl last year, I still trust Matt Stafford over anybody.
Stafford or Allen. I know Allen hasn't done it, but I don't know if necessarily it's been his fault. Some of those games, a team to put, a player that can put a team on his back. I think those are the two, Allen and Stafford. I wouldn't put it past it to be Bills, Rams. In the Super Bowl, if you just look at this bracket, but it's going to be incredibly tough for both of them.
Yep.
You're going to have to win multiple road games to get there. That's why it's so fascinating about this whole bracket is, we talk about the Bills and the Rams. We feel like those are the two teams that maybe get there just in terms of their roster and the quarterback, but they got incredibly tough roads to do it.
Yep. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So it's gonna be fun. Gonna be a fun playoffs for sure. And Brian, we're about an hour, and we can wrap this up. We were planning on this being a little a shorter show today, but man, we start talking football, man. We can just go and go sometimes. But any final thoughts before we jump off here?
No, sir. This is perfect. The gym closes, and I got about 45 minutes to get to the gym. It's always fun. It's always worth being late to talk with you and to talk football and go catch Ole Miss and Miami. Go Canes.
Absolutely. Before we log off, we mentioned it before, but we got a pretty big show coming up this Sunday night. Tony Paul from Detroit News is going to be on. A lot of things going on in terms of the Tigers and really all the local teams outside of the Lions in terms of their TV situation and the streaming network FanDuel Sports, their main company going bankrupt, and now that TV rights are just up to the teams now. So he wrote a story last week about that, and really interested to kind of pick his mind. A lot of questions I have with him about that. And we're going to talk some Tigers with him for sure as well. So really excited to have him on. And then Sean Murphy will be on, who covers the Detroit Pistons. Really excited to talk to him about this incredible run the Pistons are on, number 1 team in the East. Really excited to talk some Detroit Pistons basketball with Sean Murphy as well. So that'll be 8:00 this Sunday. We encourage you guys all to watch and listen. But for Brian Barnes, for tonight, this has been Inside the Coach's Office. I'm Dan Murphy, and we'll see you Sunday at 8.